conveyor is now finished, apart from painting and fitting to the layout when the layout eventually gets built. It's chemically blackened at the moment using Casey's Super Blue, which is very nice stuff, and should any paint get chipped or what have you, it'll look fairly decent underneath. At the moment we're looking at the upstage side, which is the non-audience side. The audience will be looking at the other side, hence the motor being invisible on the unseen side. We now have a hopper which is just made out of, I think it's about 15 thou brass, cut and silver soldered all together. The only other things about that are, if we can see, there's straps on each side which mount it, and they go, they use the spacer screws on each side, so that holds it secure. And then along here we've got a plate, a little bit flat strip silver soldered to the hopper, which in turn sits on top of the main frames of the conveyor, and that stops the hopper from rocking back and forth and fouling the strakes, because the inside of the hopper has to just clear the strakes as they run underneath. So it's primitive but effective. Moving along, we have here at each side, I've talked about these already, these are the take-up bearings, which by adjusting one side more than the other can encourage the belt to move to one side or the other, so you can set the tracking like that, much like one used to set the tracking on old VHS tapes. But those effectively are proper take-up bearings. And then finally we have the support leg, which is just clipped on. It's drilled through 0.8mm or 0.84mm on each side, and then just a little bit of 0.8mm wire welded in, leaving about 1 millimetre protruding in that way, so one can effectively just bring it to the frames and it'll clip into the two holes drilled in, and if I want to remove it I can just pull the leg slightly and unclip it and remove it. So that's nice and easy. We've discussed already the motor, 10mm motor, 60 RPM. Now in an ideal world I think I probably would prefer 40 RPM or even 30. Now one can slow it down electronically or electrically, that's not a problem. I might do that. 60 RPM on this I think is quite fast enough, but it works fine like that. So if one was going to make something like this, that is the speed range that I would suggest you should be looking, anything between 30 and 60 RPM for a direct one-to-one drive, as I have it arranged. See if there's anything left in this battery. Yeah, there is. We'll pop any old bits of this is large coal just kicking around. One would actually use much smaller pieces normally, or gravel or something, but I lift this up, we'll see how it does in fact work. Put a spot more coal in that. Now this will be loaded by little tipper wagons, just like on the end of the line. They'll tip here and it'll drop down into here, etc, etc. So, and of course, because I use big cut, oh no, it's did it all by itself, I didn't touch that. So it'll cope very well. So that is how to make a conveyor from scratch. I have no doubt that that will work quite effectively under reasonably arduous conditions, and is probably at least as reliable as the old Hornby type models that one could buy. So to recap, we're talking about ribbon. This is typewriter ribbon, cleaned. 2 layers for the belt. 1 layer is prepped by introducing wire to form strakes, and I did that by making a timber block with slots cut in it. That is then glued to a plain belt with Copydex, our old friend Copydex, which seems really strong actually, and that will give you a full belt, and then the rest is fairly simple, straightforward fabrication. The only fiddly bits are the rollers. Now I've actually put shaped rollers on this, conical rollers. I think one could fudge that by using neoprene rubber on them. I suspect it's not as fussy as all that. And certainly the drive roller has to be neoprene or similar in order to grip the belt. And then of course you've got the take-up bearings, which though small are relatively straightforward. And that's it. Fairly simple, but really quite effective. And I think one could do this quite a lot smaller or quite a lot larger. This whole thing is 155mm across the frames and about 15mm wide, just to give you some idea. And that's it. Enjoy.